So I'm excited to be back and continue our conversation on fashion, innovation in technology. This time, I want to invite the panel. So we have SHIVANI. Hey, SHIVANI. We have ANDRAS and CHANDRA. So as mentioned before, we're going to continue our conversation on innovation technology, this time with an emphasis on AI, artificial intelligence. So with us, we have SHIVANI. SHIVANI is the commercial partner manager at Gorgias.
Yes, I am.
We also have ANDRAS. ANDRAS is the senior partner at STARLIGHT Ventures and the founder of Meadow.
Thank you. Do I get a hi, Gorgias, as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And we also have CHANDRA, CEO of ORS Group. So we had an opportunity to talk last week, and I know that the core essence of your business and what you do is, of course, technology and artificial intelligence, AI. Do you mind sharing with everyone a little bit about your background and what exactly you do?
Sure, I can kick it off. Hi, everyone. My name is SHIVANI, and I'm a commercial partner manager at Gorgias. I have been at Gorgias for around 2 years now under the partnerships team. And my whole role right now is I get to work with some of my amazing partners who are in the digital marketing, development, and outsourcing agency space, and really get to work with them and their brands to help utilize the best customer support tool to make things a lot more efficient. So my whole role right now is to make sure I can build and nurture these connections with my partners while being able to help their brands scale to their full potential. So I really love what I'm doing. I'm really glad to be here. So thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm ANDRAS, FORGACS. And currently I'm a partner at a venture firm that's based here in Miami called STARLIGHT Ventures. We're a very early stage investor in crazy science-based companies that are looking to change the world for the better. We invest in the future of food, materials, energy, resources, fusion, space, a lot of big technology-based sectors. And the way I got connected to this team is that they were one of the earliest investors in a company that I founded over a decade ago called Modern Meadow. And that's perhaps my most relevant connection to this sector. Modern Meadow pioneered bio-based materials for the fashion industry, footwear, furniture, automotive, et cetera, so that we can move our everyday materials away from animal-based inputs and petrochemical-based products. Let me show you an example. Tory Burch just launched 60,000 handbags using Modern Meadow's materials as the input. So the idea is basically, leather is a wonderful material, but wouldn't it be great if we could move away from leather and create something that is gorgeous, more durable, lighter weight, more expressive of color, and doesn't have to kill animals, wreck our planet, or derive from fossil fuels. So that's been my journey with Modern Meadow. And today, Modern Meadow is run by industry veterans, so I had the chance to move down here to Miami and look for other crazy companies to back.
It's great to have you in Miami.
Thanks. Thank you. I'll take that off your hand. Well, I'm here to geek out the conversation a little bit. It's been a fascinating day, a lot of interesting stories. Thank you, Jordana, for having me here. I run a firm called Operational Research Systems. We are a research firm. We use AI and machine learning and all these advanced technologies for making positive impact, both socially as well as in business. We've delivered a whole slew of use cases over the last few years to improve businesses, deliver better revenue, better customer retention, improve planning, improving design, better forecasting, demand, sales, lead times, and so forth. So it's a lot of business variables that impact businesses, right from customer preferences to operational variables that you can't control. And many of us probably have heard the whole concept of decision bias in behavioral economics. Most executives suffer with that problem, and what we try to do is use data and AI to help them make better decisions.
Well, thank you for the introduction. What a great combination, such a diverse background. But Shivani, I want to start with you. I know you work with high-profile clients, Steve Madden being one of them, among many others brands. Can you elaborate on this platform and how exactly you help your clients maximize efficiency through the use of AI?
Yeah, I'd love to. So what Gorgias is we are a customer support help desk for e-commerce brands. So we work with Shopify, Magento, and BigCommerce. And what we do is we help centralize all those customer channels in one place. So your live chat, email, phone, social media, everything is essentially centralized in this one view to really be able to reply back to those questions in one place and really streamline that process. So we work in a lot of different verticals, fashion and apparel being one of them, and some of those clients include Steve Madden, Princess Polly, the Kardashian brand, Good American. So it's really cool to see how we can help centralize those communication channels, but also automate a lot of the repetitive tasks that have. Hello? Sorry. Okay. That brands usually have. So, quick question: do we have any Shopify, Magento, or BigCommerce brands here? That's awesome. So, to answer that second part of that question on how Gorgias really uses AI to automate processes. Gorgias has really great machine learning capabilities that can pick up on certain languages and keywords and then automatically categorize them into specific folders. So as brands, you probably get a lot of questions on returns, refunds, cancellations, and I'm assuming it's a lot of work to reply back to them. But also, for statistics and reporting purposes, you'd like to see what most of your questions are about. So if you get a question like, hey, I'd like to get a refund for this product, or hey, this t-shirt has torn, I'd like to return it, Gorgias can pick up on those keywords like returns and refunds and then put them in a folder that is categorized by returns and refunds, so your customer support team can make sure they can get back to all of those questions regarding that topic. And so it's a really great way to understand what your customers are asking, and so that you're able to get back to them. Another key feature we have is something called a macro, which is like a templated response to popular questions that you can get. Brands during their busy seasons or during the holiday season, you're probably getting a lot of the same questions, one of them being, where is my order? And you can imagine the amount of manual work that goes into this. You got to send their order number, their tracking URL, their address. So there's a lot of manual work that goes into it, but a lot of human error that goes into it for you to have to go onto Shopify and copy everything and paste into an email. So what Gorgias does is we're able to create these templated responses, and when you get a question that says something like, where is my order? It automates that response, pulling in that information from Shopify because we're so deeply integrated with it, that something that would have taken you 5 to 10 minutes to copy and paste, you have an answer in 2 to 3 seconds. So a really cool way that Gorgias has been able to use AI and automation to increase efficiency is through auto categorization, but also with our deep integration with Shopify, auto-responding and having all of that information in one email so that your customer is satisfied with the answer and you've helped them solve their issue, so there's no need for them to reach back out.
Chandra, I have the same question for you. I know that you also work with major brands, Benetton, one of them. Can you also share with everyone how you help your clients maximize efficiency through the use of AI?
Yeah, sure. So those are very interesting use cases, Shivani. Typical applications of AI, customer-facing applications, they have tremendous amount of impact in terms of return on investment and time. There's a ton of use cases around customer segmentation and analytics, micro-segmentation and their buying behaviors. How do you do that, right? I mean, I come from the financial services industry, and we did a lot of work in derivatives trading and credit card analytics and so on. And the question even 15 years back was, how do you make a product for one? For one customer, right? If you can microsegment a customer to be able to serve the need of one customer, and you can do that 1 million times, what a great business that would be. We haven't quite gotten that far yet because technology has been evolving for so many years. But now we are in a position where we believe we can do that using and applying different types of technologies, right, from pattern recognition to image recognition, and combining that with significant operational analytics. So those are some use cases that we've delivered for our clients. There are other more, I'm going to say, efficiency kind of use cases, right? I mean, most fashion companies plan 18 to 24 months out. So you're actually deciding what to put into the market 18 months, sometimes 4 or 5 seasons out. And these are not trivial amounts. You're actually deciding, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of products. How do you do that? I mean, you have good planning tools and so on, but what happens to all the variables around you? The weather changes and the pandemic and all other issues that you need to keep in mind while you're planning for hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. I mean, so we provide deep analytics using neural network technology and other kind of AI technologies where we're able to provide them with a highly accurate forecast of what to buy, when, and at what point in time. And the same thing flows through to manufacturing, if you're a manufacturing organization, or purchasing, distribution, inventory optimization, and so forth. So there's a ton of use cases that you can deliver, or we've delivered on all of those operational efficiency use cases. And we work with, Luxottica. We've actually, saved about $200 million in free cash flow for Luxottica as soon maybe 6 months putting up our engines in. We've done some really fascinating forecasting work for Bulgari. They launch new products all the time. How do you forecast for a new product, right? There's no history. So we use certain techniques, in AI and machine learning to forecast for new products, and also omni-channel fulfillment. Somebody here was telling, I don't know whether this was the previous panel or the one before, that you go click on a product and you're disappointed because you don't have stock. Now, how do you manage that, right? You can use certain technology, engines and models available now, where you can actually very accurately forecast what is expected, where, I mean, you use a combination of online information and information from stores if you have stores, and combine those information, and then you get real concrete demographic information that you can use for, better optimizing your allocations and so forth. So there's a ton of use cases that we've delivered for our clients on using AI and machine learning.
Well, it's great to hear how AI adds value to any type of business. Andras, in your case, I want to continue the conversation on technology. Earlier today, we had a conversation on alternative leathers. Can you elaborate with us what you mean creating alternative leather where animals are not part of this conversation?
Sure. So leather is a beautiful material. It's ubiquitous. It's been with us for thousands, tens of thousands of years. It's basically a protein-based material, right? The main protein building block of leather is collagen, which is the main protein in your skin. It's the most abundant protein in your body. What if you could rethink that and say, hey, let me work with proteins, but rather than deriving it from an animal that's raised in the field, takes up a lot of land, water, emits greenhouse gas emissions, all of that, what if we could produce those proteins either from plants, which give it to us very efficiently, or we could actually brew it in big tanks, like you would brew beer. And that was the founding premise of modern Meadow. We've developed technologies where we can produce proteins either from agriculture, from farming, or from fermentation. And then we take those proteins, and in the case of our materials, these are plant-derived proteins, but they mimic a lot of the structure function of collagen, which is what makes up leather. And then we combine it with polymers to create essentially a coating technology that you can apply onto a textile and make it in a roll-to-roll system, right? So the material here for Tory Burch was actually produced through a joint venture that Modern Meadow created with La Monta, which is the leading Italian textile mill that is, probably one of the best in the world for making coated textiles, right? If you have any monogram handbags from Gucci or LVMH or any of those brands, La Monta is the main supplier to those brands. And La Monta in the 70s really pioneered making polyurethane fashionable, right? They made polyurethane ubiquitous by coating textiles with it. And they were so successful that they kind of created a problem. They created, they now want to atone for their sins, right? Of how do we move the world away from petrochemical products, and at the same time, how do we also move the world away from animal products, right? And you can do that by taking proteins and essentially developing a formulation that you can run on the same infrastructure that you can use for coated textiles. And that's been the innovation of Modern Meadow, which is developing new kinds of biotech-based materials that can drop into existing infrastructure. So we can make not just alternatives to leather, but alternatives to Gore-Tex, right? The world wants to move away from PFAS, right? From Teflon-based materials. We've developed bio-based alternatives to that. We've developed bio-based alternatives to tannable leathers. So if any of you want to come up afterwards, I can show you an example of a suede material that is essentially made by making a crust that is, without hair, flesh, and fat. So it's basically a dry white crust that you can drop into a tanning drum and essentially tan it, and it comes out like a leather material. So now you're co-opting the entire tanning industry. And the whole innovation here is, let's work with the infrastructure we have around the world so we don't need to build new factories, and let's help them convert to bio-based technologies so we can move away from petrochemicals or animal-based products.
That's great. Shivani, Chandra, this question is for you. I know that you have the opportunity to work directly with clients that are constantly looking for efficiencies and solutions. Thank you. What are some of the most common operational challenges that you see clients or businesses facing today, and how AI can close that gap?
Go first.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I talked about a bunch of use cases. They're all real use cases. Saves money, gives better customer service support, and so on. AI often gets confused with. People often confuse AI with automation. They also confuse AI with machines that make decisions by themselves autonomously. And there are industries where those kinds of AI has been applied. Self-driving cars is an example of that. The business world, however, I think is not ready to hand over control to machines, and they shouldn't. Our thesis is basically that if you combine the intuition and experience of business managers with insights that an AI engine provides in terms of predictions or forecasting, you're going to be able to run your business much better at lower cost, produce better products, deliver better outcomes for shareholders, and so on. So those are the types of use cases we focus on, and like I mentioned in the past, a few minutes back, a ton of use cases focused around using operational fast-flowing data to improve outcomes. There are other very fascinating use cases that we also think we have also delivered for one of the largest winemakers in Italy and for the northern region. We do yield curve forecasting, so you got to extract, you got to pick the grapes out of the wine at just the right time. Too short and it gets too acidic, too late and it gets too dry. How do you do that? Weather being what it is today, it's so many variables, right? How do you even the slant of the land makes a lot of difference, right? The amount of water flowing through it, the amount of sun coming on it. So we use a lot of these external information to be able to tell them, pick at this point in time for this quadrant of the land and so forth. So there's a lot of use cases that we can talk about in terms of operationalizing AI.
Yeah, so to take this question back to like a e-commerce and customer support perspective, I think some operational inefficiencies brands usually have is number one, having siloed data, and then number two, a lot of the work that they're doing is very manual. So to take it back to a brand who's getting a ton of customer questions when, especially during the busy seasons or during the holiday, you are getting a ton of questions in your Gmail, in your Instagram DMs, in your live chat. And having each of these tabs open, you are causing so much chaos because you're not able to keep up with all the questions that come in. So by doing that, you're hurting yourself because your first response time, so the time it takes for you to get back to your customers, is increasing. Your resolution time to them is increasing. And because of this, your customer satisfaction score is going down, and you're losing the opportunity to make revenue on these questions that are coming in, which are most likely pre-sale questions that you'd love to turn into an opportunity. So by having your information siloed is a huge inefficiency that I see brands have. And the second thing is having to do all this work manually. When it comes to customer support, obviously, us as a team, we are replying back to the brands. But if you are getting 1,000 questions on returns and refunds and you are manually typing all of this, you are taking so much time into replying back to these customers. So how AI can come into the picture is by using the automations that these companies have built in place, specifically with Gorgias, to be able to automate all these responses to those common questions, taking seconds to get back to the customers. So by having this omni-channel solution and by decreasing your manual work by using automation, you are able to save that customer from going to another brand who sells a similar product because you're able to get back to them in a quicker manner. So these are some key ways that Gorgias has been able to help all these Shopify brands with their customer support, simply by having all of the questions that come in into one view, and by using all the different automations we have in place to mitigate that manual labor that goes into replying back.
Andras, I'm coming back to you now. So as I was doing research on what you do and your background, you talk about a 3-step process to biofabrication. Can you briefly walk us through that process and what you decided to focus on leather?
Sure. Yeah, I think I gave a bit of an overview of this earlier, but basically our insight at Modern Meadow was that leather is essentially a protein-based material, and so rather than deriving the protein from an animal, can we derive proteins either from fermentation by brewing them in tanks, or from plants? And proteins are the structural components of biology, right? They're the basic building blocks of biology. So we figured out over the years at Modern Meadow what proteins to source from plants and what are the proteins, in our case, collagen-like proteins that we can produce through fermentation. In the case of our biomaterials, we use plant-based proteins simply because you can buy them by the metric ton. You can actually tune them. There's a lot to choose from, and we figured out over the years what are the right proteins that work. Those proteins are then combined in a miscible blend with bio-based polymers and formulated into a coating material. You can then introduce dye technology. So that's one of the real innovations of this technology, is that with traditional synthetic leathers, you would only use pigments. Pigments is color that is mostly saturated and it sits on the surface. That's why if you have a synthetic leather shoe and you scuff it, you get to basically see the white or the black underneath. The color doesn't go all the way through. But by using proteins, dyes actually bind to proteins, which means that all of a sudden in a liquid formulation, you can take proteins plus bio-based polymer plus dyes and get color penetration and color expression all the way through, which is why you get very rich color expression, you get higher breathability, you're able to create lighter weight materials in this coating technology. And then you have a range of choices of how you apply this coating technology. If you apply it in a roll-to-roll process through reverse transfer coating, you can essentially create a coated canvas type material. And that's what we do with La Monta, the Italian textile mill. And that creates this Biotex material. if you infuse it into a fabric, you now all of a sudden can have a fabric that has richer color expression, where you can create a dyeable fabric that can hold color in a more vibrant way than, let's say, just cotton alone. And if you apply it in a different construction, you can create a Gore-Tex, type material. If you infuse it into a different kind of material and then tan it later, you can create a suede analog. So if any of you want to feel what the future of leather is like, this is BioVera. So this is basically a tanned material where this technology has created a crust, a dry white, that is then dropped into a tanning drum, and you tan it like conventional leather. But rather than having to work with, imperfect shapes and sizes and scars and insect bites that you might have on animal hides, here you have something that doesn't have any animal hair on it, perfect every time, and so your yields are much higher. Your efficiency is a lot higher, which is what's very compelling for tanneries, and it's very compelling for end users, right? Your cut efficiency is a lot better on your product. So there you go, you can feel that. So I'm not quite sure this is a 3-step process. There's many more steps than 3, but it all derives from mastering the biotechnology of proteins, mastering the material science of how these proteins combine with other polymers, and then mastering the industrialization of how this technology drops in to a whole range of manufacturing techniques so that it can show up in a bunch of different ways in a bunch of different applications.
Coming back, and this question is for the 3 of you, coming back to AI, there's a perception that AI will be taking over future jobs due to automation. But in your case, and we had talked about this today, we see the value. What are your thoughts about this?
Sure. I love that question because I feel like everyone nowadays, all you can talk about is AI and automation. So personally, I believe that AI and automation is here to help make our jobs, our tasks, responsibilities, workflows, processes a lot more easy, efficient, and quick. I think it's more of an advanced tool than a complete replacement. So I think the gap really widens with those that take advantage of using AI and automation in their work rather than those companies that don't, because it very much is, it's a tool that's very highly capable that can help us be a lot more efficient. And just to take ChatGPT, for example, when it came out, the whole world went crazy, and the brands that really capitalized and utilized it and implemented it in their current workflows are probably doing a much, much better job than those that haven't. So I think it's AI and automation is something that's gonna definitely keep revolutionizing and growing, and we just have to be mindful with how we want to use it. But I definitely think it's here to help us rather than replace us. Because think about it, at the end of the day, as a customer support team, us as humans still have to reply back to the customers, but by using automations, it just helps make our lives a lot easier. So I definitely don't think, at least in the world of customer support and e-commerce, it's here to replace, but rather here to just play to our strengths and succeed and build our brand as high as we can go.
Yeah, thank you, Shivani. I tend to agree with her. You're definitely going to see some jobs go, but we've gone through the agricultural revolution. People said everything is going to die. People are going to lose their jobs and so forth. It actually ushered in a significant amount of productivity improvement, and now we have food that we can deliver to almost 70% of the world. Arguably, we make more food than people can consume, but we don't want to talk geopolitics here. Then we had the industrial revolution, and same story. And now it's the AI revolution. I think there's a lot of good, returns you're going to get from here. We haven't even started talking about technology where you're actually combining AI with core human strength. either through direct implants of devices in your brain, or improving the efficiency of your muscles, your natural fibers. All of that, I think, is going to usher in a very different era. We just have to be open to what it's going to come. And like Shivani said, put guardrails so that we don't exploit it.
Yeah. Thanks. As a venture investor, I'm keenly interested in AI, and less on the application side, because there's just so much iteration, so much innovation there, but more on the infrastructure side. So as an investor, we've been looking at ways that AI can be accelerated, both on the training side and on the inference side, because right now, the cost of computation is just so high that to truly unlock its potential, we have to figure out ways to improve that orders of magnitude. So that's my day job. Where I've seen AI applied in the companies that I've founded is in accelerating R&D, right? As a scientist, you've already been in the data science profession. Your job is to take measurements and to derive signal from noise so that you can design your next set of experiments, right? It's design, build, test, and that whole cycle. And the faster you can do that, and the more you can derive higher quality data from the noise, the faster you can accelerate the R&D cycle. And that's where I've seen, just data science really take hold. And that's where I also see a huge potential for AI to accelerate the productivity of R&D. And now imagine what that can do globally, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars are spent globally on R&D. If we can make that 1% more productive with AI, and I think we can do more, think about the cures that can be brought to market faster, think about the material innovations that can be brought to market faster, the sustainability solutions that can be brought to market faster. So it has me very excited. I don't think AI is going to take jobs away in the longer term, right? I think it's just going to transform the nature of work, right? We're all going to have AI co-pilots, and it's going to be a way for us to augment our productivity. But we have to think differently about how we leverage these capabilities.
What a great discussion. And in the audience today, we have many educators. And as an educator myself, we're constantly looking for ways to align the curriculum to what's happening out there in the industry. What are some of the deficiencies that you have come across when it comes to education? And what advice will you give educators when aligning or integrating technology into the curriculum?
That's a very good question. I'm just going to refer back to my daughter. She's in the sophomore year now. She's doing computer science and math. And what I keep telling her is that don't be afraid. Ask, make mistakes, try new things, try new technology, try new ways of applying technology, and some of it is going to succeed, some fail, but at the end of the day you're going to get learnings from every one of them. The things that I like to tell the schools and the universities is don't make it rote. Try and bring organizations that are experimenting, research organizations and enterprises, and very early on, even in high school maybe, or even earlier, to help students do summer projects or thesis and so forth. Believe me, they can do it. And if you do that, you actually introduce them to new technology much ahead in in their lives and how it actually all comes together. And I think that'll help the students.
I'm going to suggest two things, and they're kind of diametrically opposite. One is that I do think that most professions in the future are going to leverage data more and more, right? So a foundational skill that you can tool up in while you're in school is just learn some aspect of data science, whether it's statistics, right, or just how to handle data, how to derive conclusions from data. That is a foundational skill that you can apply in a lot of different areas. And then the other thing that I would just encourage, especially our profession writ large, is understand the need state or the problem space, right? And so this is much more of an emotional thing, but find a problem in the world that you can get very close to, and empathize with it, grok it, emotionally connect with it. because most opportunities in the future are around solving problems that must be solved, right? The must-solve problems of the future. So if you get close to a problem, and ideally a problem that doesn't just take a weekend to solve, you can make a career out of it, right? If you're driven by climate change, if you're driven by equality, if you're driven by unlocking human potential through education, these are things that can become a career that can be enriching for decades, right? So just get close to a problem, rock it, and then also ideally learn how to leverage some aspect of data science so you can derive conclusions.
Oh, great answers. I don't know if I can compete with those, but see, I think the gap with the education system that it's very traditional. It's very much like a knowledge-based teaching. So you learn X subject, so you have the context of X subject. And I don't think that, deeply learning a subject is replaceable, but the growth of AI, it's here to help us learn about this X subject a lot quicker and with ease. And so it's really important nowadays to, it is important nowadays where it's not just enough to know about X subject. You have to be able to derive fundamental insights from it. And so I think that it is going to be a lot more easier to acquire the knowledge and context about certain subjects quicker with the use of AI. And so I think what curriculums need to do, and this is someone who was in school and wasn't very hands-on, there needs to be more than just sitting in a classroom for 3-hour lectures and take-home assignments and exams. Personally, I need you, if you're a professor, you've built out this network in this AI sphere. I need you to take me to these different startups and learn about how these guys got into, first of all, thinking of the idea. I think for you, when you mentioned, start that idea, the hardest part is getting an idea, So I want to be able to get exposure with these founders to see how they got to the point to realize, this is a problem and what I did to tackle it. Because I would love to start my own company one day. I don't know where to start. I'm scared about failure. You're not taught this as 19-year-olds in school. So I think those soft skills are so important to develop. So apart from having these, in-person lectures, I want you to get me out there into these environments where I can talk to startup founders, build my network, and these connections are what's going to help me get a full-time job, not networking with KPMG to get an accounting position. I want to talk to founders who are in the space of what I'm passionate about. And so I think more than that, really hone in on doing case competitions. Those are very helpful. I didn't have a lot of those in school, so it's great to see a lot of universities, implementing them in as extracurriculars. But I think every course should have an end of term case competition where you can work on a real life project and be able to present to the team, to the company. And lastly, we have math and English as mandatory subjects in school. I would love to see an introduction to AI or statistics as a mandatory course, because even though you're not passionate about going into computer science or engineering, you're at least equipped with the knowledge of knowing what being in this field can do. Growing up, I only knew about going into being a doctor or going into business. In high school, I didn't even know computer science existed. So when I chose my university career, I chose business, but then I'm hearing all my friends who did engineering starting off with a 100K salary, and it's I would have wanted to do that if I had known about it, So having these very technical courses as part of a mandatory, selection in whatever you choose to pursue, whether it be arts or film or whatever, we all need to be aware that it is an option for us to get into at the end, because let's be honest, who really gets into the job that they study for, So yeah, that would be my answer.
That was excellent advice.